Picture this. A woman spends years struggling to build her business, working 80-hour weeks, trying every marketing strategy in the book. Nothing works. Then one Tuesday morning, she wakes up with a random idea, posts something completely different on social media, and within 24 hours, her business explodes. Orders flooding in, partnerships calling, success that bypassed every logical step she thought she needed. Or imagine this: a man applies for hundreds of jobs, gets rejection after rejection. Then he's standing in a coffee shop, overhears a conversation, makes one comment to a stranger, and walks out with his dream job. No interview, no formal application, no following the proper process. What's happening here? Are these just lucky breaks, or is there something deeper at play? Here's the thing that's going to blow your mind today. In quantum physics, there's a phenomenon called quantum tunneling, where particles do something that should be impossible. They pass through energy barriers that classical physics says they absolutely cannot cross. It's like watching a ball roll up to a wall, and instead of bouncing back, it just appears on the other side without breaking the wall or going over it. And here's what's fascinating. This isn't some theoretical concept. It's happening billions of times per second in the device you're watching this on right now. Your phone, your computer, they only work because particles are constantly tunneling through barriers they shouldn't be able to cross. So here's the question that's going to keep you glued to this video. What if your dreams, your goals, your biggest manifestations work exactly the same way? What if there's a scientific explanation for why some people experience what we call overnight success or miraculous breakthroughs? In today's video, we'll explore how quantum tunneling proves that the impossible is not only possible, it's happening all around us. We'll dive into the science behind why particles can skip through barriers, how ancient wisdom understood this concept thousands of years before modern physics, and most importantly, how you can apply quantum tunneling principles to manifest your dreams faster than you ever thought possible. And here's something that'll keep you watching until the end. Everything I'm sharing about tunneling today connects to something even more mind-bending about quantum physics that I'll reveal in our next video. It's about how every single thing you desire is already connected to you through invisible threads that Einstein calls spooky action at a distance. But more on that later. Let's start with understanding what quantum tunneling actually is, because once you get this, you'll never look at obstacles the same way again. Imagine you're rolling a ball toward a hill. In our everyday world, if the ball doesn't have enough energy to get over the hill, it just rolls back down, right? That makes perfect sense. But in the quantum world, something incredible happens. That ball can actually appear on the other side of the hill without having enough energy to go over it, without breaking through it, without any logical explanation for how it got there. This is quantum tunneling, and it happens because at the quantum level, particles don't behave like solid objects. They behave like waves of probability. Picture throwing a stone into a pond. The ripples spread out in all directions, right? Quantum particles are similar. They exist as waves of possibility until they are observed or measured. Now here's where it gets interesting for manifestation. When a wave hits a barrier, part of that wave can actually exist on the other side of the barrier, even if most of it bounces back. It's like the particle is saying, well, there's a tiny probability I could be on the other side of this wall, so I'm just going to be there. Your smartphone camera works because of this phenomenon. In the sensor, electrons tunnel through barriers they shouldn't be able to cross, creating the electrical signals that become your photos. The GPS in your car relies on tunneling. Even the sun's energy reaches us because hydrogen nuclei tunnel through energy barriers to fuse together. So the impossible is literally powering your daily life right now. But here's what most people miss. We are not separate from this quantum reality. We are made of the same fundamental particles that tunnel through barriers every second. Our thoughts, our consciousness, our intentions, they're all part of this quantum field where impossible things happen routinely. Think about it this way. You know how sometimes you get an idea that seems to come from nowhere? Or you meet exactly the right person at exactly the right time? Or opportunities open up in ways that bypass all the logical steps you thought you needed to take? In the comments, drop one word that captures your biggest impossible dream. Maybe it's freedom, maybe it's love, Maybe it's abundance, maybe it's something uniquely yours. Let that word be a quantum seed you plant not just in this space but in the quantum field itself. Now, what's fascinating is that this understanding of reality isn't new. Ancient wisdom traditions have been talking about transcending limitations for thousands of years. They just didn't have the scientific language we have today. Lao Tzu wrote, "The sage is guided by what he feels and not by what he sees." What he was describing is the ability to perceive possibilities that exist beyond the apparent barriers of physical reality. The ancient Taoists understood that the universe operates on principles that transcend linear cause and effect. In ancient Egypt, they had a concept called Ma'at, the principle of divine order that could create instant transformation when aligned with properly. The Egyptians built technologies and achieved feats that modern science still struggles to explain, suggesting they understood how to work with quantum like principles of reality. Hindu philosophy speaks of Maya, the illusion of separation and limitation. They taught that what we perceive as solid barriers are actually just waves in consciousness that can be transcended when we understand our true nature. Greek philosophers like Democritus proposed that reality is made of indivisible particles moving in void space. He was describing atomic theory 2,400 years before we had microscopes to prove it. But more importantly, he understood that what appears solid and permanent is actually in constant motion and flux. These ancient thinkers weren't just philosophers, they were describing the quantum nature of reality through the lens of consciousness and spiritual practice. They knew that limitations are often just probabilities, waiting to be collapsed into new possibilities. Honestly, I still mess this up half the time, thinking I need to follow every logical step to reach my goals. But then I remember that particles don't ask permission to tunnel through barriers. They just do it because the probability exists. Here's what quantum tunneling teaches us about manifestation. The path to your dreams doesn't always have to go through the obstacles. Sometimes it goes around them, under them, or through them in ways that bypass linear logic entirely. But before we dive deeper into how this works for conscious creators, I want to invite you into something real. If you've been feeling like something's clicking, and if a part of you is starting to see that the impossible might just be improbable, tap like because like attracts like and hit subscribe. Stay with the space, grow with us. Also join our manifestation club on gogetter.au, get inspired by reading manifestation stories and share your story to inspire others. You're stepping into a space where quantum breakthroughs are our foundation. Now let's get into the science of how this actually connects to manifestation, because this is where it gets really exciting. In quantum mechanics, particles exist in what's called a superposition. They exist in multiple states simultaneously until they are observed. It's like Schrödinger's famous cat that's both alive and dead until someone opens the box to check. Your dreams and goals exist in a similar superposition. Right now, there are multiple probability waves extending from your current reality toward every possible version of your future. Some of these probability waves are stronger than others, but they all exist simultaneously in the quantum field. When you focus your intention, your consciousness acts like the observer in quantum mechanics. You're collapsing the probability wave into specific outcomes. But here's the key. Just like particles can tunnel through barriers, your consciousness can collapse probability waves that bypass the logical steps you think you need to take. Napoleon Hill wrote in Think and Grow Rich about people who achieved success through what he called hunches or inspired ideas. He documented case after case of individuals who received breakthrough insights that led directly to their goals, skipping years of struggle and logical progression. What Hill was observing, without knowing the quantum physics behind it, was consciousness tunneling through barriers of limitation and doubt to connect directly with desired outcomes. Dr. Stuart Hameroff, an anesthesiologist and consciousness researcher, proposed that consciousness itself might operate through quantum processes in the brain's microtubules. If he's right, then our ability to conceive of realities beyond our current circumstances is literally a quantum phenomenon. The famous double-slit experiment shows us that particles behave differently when they are being observed. When consciousness is present, the quantum field responds. This isn't mystical thinking anymore. This is documented science showing that awareness affects reality at the fundamental level. So when you hold a vision of your desired outcome, you're not just daydreaming. You're creating quantum tunneling possibilities for that outcome to manifest in ways that might bypass every obstacle you think stands in your way. Think about people like Oprah Winfrey. She didn't follow the traditional path to media success. She was born into poverty, faced incredible challenges, but somehow her consciousness tunneled through barriers that stopped countless others. One audition led to opportunities that bypassed decades of traditional climbing the corporate ladder. Or consider someone like Eckhart Tolle. He was suicidally depressed, and then in one moment of surrender, his entire reality shifted. He didn't gradually learn to be enlightened over years of study. His consciousness tunneled directly from despair to awakening in a single night. These aren't just feel good stories, they're examples of quantum tunneling in action through human consciousness. Here's something that might challenge everything you think you know about achieving goals. What if the reason some of your dreams haven't manifested isn't because you haven't worked hard enough, but because you've been trying to push through barriers instead of tunneling around them? In quantum tunneling, particles don't use force. They don't break down barriers or climb over them. They exist as probability waves that simply include the possibility of being on the other side of the barrier. The barrier is still there, but the particle transcends it. In the comments, share your biggest quantum leap moment, a time when something amazing happened in your life that bypassed the logical steps. Tell me about that breakthrough that seemed to come from nowhere. Your story might inspire someone else to recognize their own quantum tunneling experiences. Alright, let's get practical. How do you apply quantum tunneling to your manifestation practice? I'm going to give you 5 specific techniques that work with the wave nature of consciousness rather than against it. First technique, wave state visualization. Instead of focusing on the specific steps you think you need to take to reach your goal, focus on existing simultaneously in your current reality and your desired reality. Spend time each day imagining yourself as a probability wave that includes both states. Feel yourself already living your dream while acknowledging where you currently are. This creates the quantum superposition necessary for tunneling. Second technique, probability expansion. Write down your goal, then write down every impossible way it could happen. The more unlikely the path, the better. A stranger offers you exactly what you need. The perfect opportunity falls into your lap. Someone chooses you out of thousands of candidates for no logical reason. By expanding your awareness of improbable possibilities, you're creating more tunneling pathways. Third technique, barrier dissolution. Instead of focusing on overcoming obstacles, practice perceiving them as probability clouds rather than solid walls. When you encounter a challenge, ask yourself, what if this barrier is just one probability among many? What if there's a version of reality where this obstacle doesn't exist or isn't relevant to my path? Fourth technique, quantum timing. Stop forcing timelines. Particles don't tunnel on schedule, they tunnel when the conditions are right. Trust that your consciousness knows the optimal quantum moment for breakthrough. This doesn't mean being passive. It means aligning your actions with quantum rhythms rather than forcing linear timelines. Fifth technique, observer effect activation. Remember that in quantum mechanics, observation affects outcomes. Practice being a conscious observer of your life rather than just a participant. Notice synchronicities, unexpected opportunities, and coincidences that might be quantum tunneling events. The more you observe quantum possibilities, the more they tend to manifest. Here's something from personal experience. I used to believe that success required grinding through every obstacle. But when I started applying these quantum principles, I noticed that my biggest breakthroughs came through pathways I never could have planned. Opportunities that made no logical sense but aligned perfectly with my intentions. The ancient Chinese had a saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. What they were describing is quantum entanglement between desire and fulfillment. But that's exactly what we're going to explore in our next video. How everything you want is already connected to you through invisible quantum threads. Here's a preview of what's coming. Quantum entanglement shows us that particles that have interacted remain connected forever, no matter how far apart they are. Change one particle instantly, and its entangled partner responds immediately, even across galaxies. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance because it seemed to violate everything we thought we knew about reality. But what if your dreams, your goals, your desired outcomes are already quantumly entangled with your consciousness? What if the reason you can conceive of certain realities is because you're already connected to them through quantum threads that transcend space and time? That's what we're diving into next, the science of instant manifestation through quantum entanglement and how to activate these invisible connections in your own life. But for now, let's anchor what we've learned about quantum tunneling. Your dreams don't always have to follow logical pathways. Just like particles can appear on the other side of barriers without going through them, your consciousness can connect with desired outcomes in ways that bypass every obstacle you think stands in your way. The key is learning to think like a quantum wave rather than a classical particle. Waves include possibilities that particles exclude. Waves exist in multiple states simultaneously. Waves can be in two places at once. Start seeing yourself as a wave of consciousness that includes both your current reality and your desired reality. Hold that superposition, trust the tunneling process, and watch for those quantum leaps that seem to come from nowhere but are actually the natural result of consciousness operating according to its quantum nature. Comment one thing you're ready to quantum tunnel through. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's lack, maybe it's doubt. Whatever barrier you're ready to transcend, name it. Not for me, but for you. Because naming the barrier is the first step in recognizing that it's just one probability among infinite others. And remember, you're not trying to break through barriers, you're recognizing that barriers are just probability clouds in the quantum field of infinite possibility. Your consciousness is already on both sides of every barrier you think exists. Make sure you share this video with anyone who's been feeling stuck, anyone who thinks their dreams are impossible, anyone who needs to remember that the universe operates on quantum principles where the impossible happens billions of times per second. Your sharing might be the quantum tunneling event that changes their entire perspective on what's possible. If this opened up new possibilities in your mind, if you're starting to see obstacles as probability clouds rather than solid walls, hit subscribe and click the bell icon because next week we're diving into quantum entanglement. The science that proves everything you desire is already connected to you through invisible threads of possibility. Like to anchor this new understanding of quantum reality? Share this breakthrough with someone who needs to hear it. And get ready for the entanglement revelation that's going to show you why manifestation isn't about attracting things to you. It's about activating connections that already exist at the quantum level. The impossible isn't impossible. It's just improbable until consciousness collapses the probability wave. And you, as a conscious being operating in a quantum universe, have the power to collapse any probability wave into reality. See you in the next video where we explore the quantum threads that connect you to everything you've ever dreamed of.